Hello everyone, MasterCon1201 here, and before we get in and begin texture painting, I want to press Alt V and take a look at the wireframe and just make a few changements. For example, on the low, I feel that we were just way too hard on the low and the simplicity of the circles. In fact, if we enable auto smooth, we can at least have the mesh look competent, and we see that the cuts that we have are very sharp. In fact, let me enable screencast keys as well, or a key press. And for this, we just want to basically just level it up one more level of curvature. So in order to do this, we are just going to press Q, mark it with the sharpen, which will mark all of the sharp edges, and then let us just add a level of subdivision, and we see that the mesh survived, but we do want to make sure that we are not marking the wrong areas. And since this mesh is already UV'd, we're probably going to have to deal with that, but that is life. So first we'll unmark it, select our boundaries, and remark it. Do the same thing with this bottom area too. In fact, let's select both of them, since we made some mistakes. And that's what happens whenever you have subdivision showing in edit mode. It just, will lie to you and get in your way. But now with that, we can basically unmark, shift tilde, mark, and we have some much curvier circles going on. And let's just control one just to make sure that it's only one level of subdivision. And as far as the poly count goes, I'm imagining that for this, we're going to probably double it, but really, what are our poly count limits? We don't have any specified, so the rules are pretty loose. So let us just almost want to just jump to the next part, but I'm looking at this edge and just thinking, can we do better with that? Maybe like so. No, let's mark this one. That one's also not helping, just having that crease. Shift E, let's make darn sure that it's creased, and it looks like it wasn't actually creased. Same thing on the other side, so we're going to use a HardOps classic. We'll go under operations, and under bevel edge manager, we see that by shift clicking we can bring up our edge manager, and we just want to convert anything like from seam to basically be creased. And by clicking that, we should see the mesh update over here. But for some reason it took a little bit longer than I was expecting. Usually that should just take a second to go through, but I'm telling you, there's always more optimizations to be had, so our work is never done. This should be a saying by now. So we're just going to apply the subdivision, and this is what our mesh is looking like. So things are a little bit heavier. We could probably get back in here and just do a little reduction. For example, I'm just going to merge all of this at center. We're going to grab this stuff, merge at center. It's just simpler. And really all this stuff is just big flat area that's obscured. So I truly do not care about what this area looks like. We just don't want it to have too much freedom like it does right now. I am going to just use circle and circle select all of this. Maybe circle select that too. M, circle, or at center. We can do the same thing with this area as well. Merge at center. And we're not doing too bad. If we look at our poly count, we see that we're at 1724, which is a little high, and that's because there's all these redundant loops that are added. So really, if we go on to search for these redundant, and also let's Alt X, we're going to Alt scroll to bisect mod and just split our work in half, because there's no way I'm going to go through a review process on the other side. But everywhere where the geometry is flat, we want to just go ahead and just get into it with Vertimergy. You know me, Vertimergy is my partner in crime. Anytime I got to deal with geometry, Vertimergy's on. And I don't want to take away too much, because if we remove too much, we start adding knots to the surface. And if we Alt V and turn off the wireframe, we see that it actually looks pretty good on a surfacing level for a low. But critique that I've received a lot in the past is that I'm just way too hard on circles, and also my reductions are way too high. Like, I'm reducing stuff like it's a mobile game, and I really need to stop doing that. So, like I said, I think I mentioned in my previous video, I was working and just started getting anime flashbacks of times that people told me in the past, like, hey man, you gotta, 'Stop being so mean to these circles, man. you know, for all of this, we are just going to grab everything, merge at center. Let's grab this, merge at center. You know, no need to get fancy with this. Merge at center. You know, there's always something to reduce. And if we look at our vert count, we see that we are reducing pretty nicely. For this area, you know, we could really ask ourselves the deep moral dilemma of do these loops need to exist? And we see that it sacrifices a little bit, enough that it almost validates the decision. So we're just grabbing without too much cross happening, like that, and we'll just slide here. And it looks like we kind of went a little hard on that reduction. You know, there I am reducing it again as if I'm going to put this on a mobile phone. And I don't even, you know, do you even have a mobile phone, guys? Just kidding, everyone does. Even my dad has a mobile phone. You know, he doesn't even know how to respond to a text message, but he has a cell phone. Everyone has a cell phone. I find it to be weird that everyone has a phone. I'm like, they're like interpersonal devices. Like, wouldn't aliens find it weird too? Like, they come to Earth, they're like, y'all carry devices to communicate with each other all the time. You know, what about solitude time? It's like, oh no, we have to notify humans. I mean, we have to notify each other that we made it to our destination safely, or else they do something called worrying, which is prohibited in our society. Otherwise, they will call the human dog catchers, otherwise known as the police. You know, I look at police crazy too. You know, maybe not in general, but you know, they're probably needed for our society because we're a bunch of undomesticated monkeys. But you know, whenever it comes to police, it's like, wow, we have human dog catchers. We have people that like roam the streets, you know, on a quest to catch people. The ultimate prey, by the way. You know, like they say on It's Always Sunny, you never hunt a man. You know, really reducing this so hard. I mean, is this worth it? I mean, I always ask myself whenever I'm doing it, I'm like, is this worth it? Am I just going crazy on this? And the answer is often yes. Yes, I must calm down. But I can't. I just see reduction opportunities everywhere. For example, this area. Just chock full of reduction opportunities. And if the surface holds together, whenever you tab back out of edit mode, then you know that you were able to reduce it well. I mean, I think I was originally going to have a video of me playing Tetris displayed on screen. I don't know if I did that, but I'm telling you, those Puyos, I see that they're starving to innovate Tetris, and that's why they're mixing in other franchises. So, why does it have to be Puyos? Their rules are so differently balanced that, you know, basically Puyos just come in and can just cheat through chain reaction accidents. You shouldn't be able to win a game through an accident in a Tetris game. But anyways, we have this reduced down to 381, so multiplied by 2, you know, it would, let's also look at the UVs. Because we cut it in half, we only have like, oh so much of our geometry left. So something I used to do back in the day is I would pin the geometry and we'll apply the mirror and then try, you know, UVing it again, but keeping the other half pinned, so that way the UV solution utilizes what we have already. So let's do that. We also incremented the file by 1, so now it's piston 04_3 because we're now on the next iteration of talking, the third video on this topic. And let's just unwrap, and we see that this is what we get so far. So I'm just going to box select the opposite side, and let's Alt P and press U to unwrap, and maybe not like that. So let's try this. We have one side looking good, we have one side looking very pinned. So we should be able to select this and U unwrap, and we see the UVs fill back out. No, oh wait, sorry, we are dealing with some crazy UVs now because we did all this sharp marking stuff. So basically our solutions are different than before. I'm pretty sure I did not have that, the way I didn't have these things actually indicated with explicit edges. Also, you know, what are we doing here? You know, you always gotta get intimate with your geometry, or at least that's my opinion. If you don't get in and check this geometry, nonsense happens. It's just a fact of life. But I get better at catching it, catching myself too. So let's look and see what these UVs look like. So they were their own thing before, except that we just really broke them off like some irises. So if we grow it, we see that that part's proper, but these parts are not. So let us just take this moment to grow these maybe to here, and we'll just Alt-P unpin those. So the rest of it will be pinned, and then when we UV it again, it will just have a slightly different solution. Let's see, continuing our quest, we want to grab all of this and maybe circle deselect this. I should have took a mental note of what our UVs were before, because the moment we sharp with seams enabled, we start changing the game, and we probably have live unwrap enabled, and we definitely don't need that at this moment. So let's continue looking at this, and we see that, you know, having live unwrap probably is going to cause us a little bit of pain. So let's just clear the seam. We'll grow this, clear the seam, just keeping everything continuous. And now we're just thinking in terms of what we actually do want our seams to be. So, you know, maybe we can split that. That'll be cool. But for this part, we don't need that one. And the same thing goes for this side. I mean, catastrophe that we have to repeat things, but we could have also used the built-in symmetry of Blender to get around that, but, you know, I learn in reverse. I make the mistakes and then I learn. So let's just select everything, look at what we have, and I'm just going to select all of these points. We're going to grow and clear the seam, and let's try this again. You unwrap, and I feel like that will have to suffice. Let's see, is this a continuous piece of geometry? Yes. So I feel like we are getting somewhere with this kind of UV transplant process. Let's press U, unwrap. This is what it was looking like before. We press U, unwrap, we're back in business. Except we probably need to press F9. Let's see what conformal looks like. Conformal, let's never talk about conformal again. And for this piece, if we want to get it, you know, right, because, you know, if I'm in the mood, I'll be very particular about UVs, but sometimes I'm a little more apathetic, seriously, because it's like, man, I've been working on this thing for so long. It's day number XXX, and, you know, I'm about to literally drink some hydraulic fluid, which I don't recommend. It's not a cure for COVID. It'll probably just kill you real good. Let's press P, pin these, press U. And we also probably want to pin these two just to set our boundaries. We'll unwrap, which will give us something like this. And I'm thinking that, let's press T, and here we go. Ooh, with relax, we want to find its top bar, or whatever option it is that basically, where is it? Right click, header. There should be more header up here. Let's see, where's the option that makes this not affect the boundaries? Let's press N and look at our tool options. Maybe lock borders. And this thing is like so powerful right now, so let's take the strength down to something a little more reasonable. We don't want to hit our circles, but, you know, just a little. Ooh, I don't even know if I want to do that. I feel so dirty, you know. I need something a little more procedural when it comes to my UV relaxing. And also, why does it undo my strength? That is just so strange. But that's Blender for you. Alright, let us just press 1 and we'll just select these points, just move them. I don't know why I'm being weird about these UVs. We're just going to pin that and let's just move on because, you know, like I said, things get weird. Stick around too long. So for this piece, let's press U, unwrap. This is what we basically received as a result of this unwrap. One side looks fine, but the other side is just not. So I'm going to press U, unwrap, but first we need to unpin this. Let's press U, unwrap. This is our piece. Doesn't matter if we break out these islands because we're just going to repack everything. For this one, we at least want this to, you know, be normal. So to me, normal is something at least like this. And I'm just so heavy on triplanar nowadays that I'm less obsessive about UV distortion because I usually just make it to the end, you know, without it becoming a serious problem worth addressing. Let's just unwrap, looking good. I didn't expect that I would actually start this video getting in here and talking about UVing again, but wait, okay, we did it. And we talk about this piece and looking good so far. Let's bring everything back. Everything's a mess. So now we have an upper S circle compared to what we had before, which was just a little too rough on it. It just wasn't suitable. So let's look at this area. This area I was also hard on. So I'm going to just give it a level of subdivision and we're just going to apply it. And we could just get rid of these edges on the side, but having these very simple circles, just, why am I doing that? I really have to do better and stop doing this stuff. Like, this is going to be a pain in the neck to fix, let me tell you. It's not going to be fun, what I'm about to have to do. But also untested. Let's just do it. We're going to press P, separate it. We want to apply one level of subdivision to this, and we're done. You know, and you're probably thinking, what's so hard about that? Well, I mean, we have to merge it back in with this mesh. So let's just do that. You know, I just wanted to get in and just do some subdivision transplant randomness. If we press L, this is what we have, and this area is what we're trying to heal. So this is the only area we have to deal with. Let's just press P, we're going to pin it, and this is how much space we're giving this, which there's going to be screws sitting on top of this, so it's really not that important. What we did actually is insignificant, come to think of it. I'm going to select this whole ring, right click, subdivide, select this loop, attempt to bridge edge loops. Actually, we don't even have to do that. Why did I was going to subdivide and make that work, but bridge edge loops is so OG and a little OP. And what I mean by OP is we could just select two uncongruent series of edges, right click, bridge edge loops, and you know, this is just going up on the sketchfab. You know, if you're judging my geometry that hard, you get out of here. But now we are cooking. So let us take this one, bridge, and it's a circular area anyway. So let's also, before we bridge it, we're just going to scale this out, then select this, bridge these, and running our simplification. Yeah, so sometimes I'll simplify it and I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I need to simplify it even more. So something like that. Let's select this whole area. And we see that it's actually looking pretty good, except I feel that there's doubles happening. So let's press U, unwrap, and something like that will actually do the job. So that process wasn't actually that difficult. We probably could have actually done it with this area too and gotten away with it. But if we wanted to do that in this, it would actually be a little bit more difficult. But that's part of our subdivision discussion that we'll be having today, is just how we can UV this in a better way to optimize it for baking, as discussed by Nighthawk. Or, you know, the way that I'm always trying to do it. I'm always trying to unwrap UVs in a way that I feel is glorious. Like, I want my UVs to look good. And so because of that, I optimize towards having good looking UVs because I don't know, I've never heard of people doing them not in a good looking way. Also with our shapes, this entire area has these islands that we should just force them to fit because our previous solution isn't worth just throwing out. It really isn't. It'd be a shame to throw it out. So I'm just going to select these islands and we are going to UV pack. And you gotta love Blender's multi-edit mode. This was not in 7.9, the ability to take multiple objects in edit mode. That is like life-changing to me. So this one is overlapping. In fact, all of these are somewhat overlapping, but our sizes are pretty good. So let us just go to UV master or UV pack master, and let's just try packing. And it looks like we are done. You know, pack master is just there for you. However, we probably want a little bit more of a margin in between. I don't know. I'm just so old school. Just can't be looking at some tight margins like that. I just don't trust images. Like once you bring images into the, I don't trust that either. But I think we went through the same dance last time where it was a little too much, a little less, a little less. You know, here we are fighting for just a little bit tighter of a space happening. But also, you know, for these super tiny islands like these, we probably could get away with just placing them somewhere where we can actually scale them up like here. You know, I was about to give them that area, but that area is actually more important. We can give that to something else that actually matters. But let's just move some of these like itty bitty islands because you know they're just going to get like 4 pixels on the images. So I'm not trying to be looking at ugly bakes. Maybe mediocre bakes, but not ugly bakes. No ugly bakes, please. I don't even know which piece this is. So I really got to stop. I'm being weird. Let's just go back and press Alt V and we look at our UVs. And now we have, you know, reacquainted this entire mesh back together with UV. So let's take this moment to press Q, settings, export. We're going to export this as an OBJ because I just don't play with FBXs. You know, I probably sound like a jerk. I'd be talking to people on the Discord about export workflows, and everybody's like, FBX, man, FBX. I'm like, man, I can't be FBX. I can't be FBXing, man. Just can't. It's just dislike that format. I had this experience where I had to use this FBX converter, and I had to convert 2013s to 2012s to do all this random stuff and dealing with data being lost. And please no, not in my free time. I'll do it for a job if I'm being paid to, you know, fine. Let's get this party started. But personally, no, I don't want that torture. So now I'm going to open up Substance Painter, and the thing about Substance Painter is every time you open it now, they slap you with that big Adobe logo, which just makes me depressed. So I'm going to pause it while we wait for it to load. Another thing before we move on to Substance Painter is on the high, we should probably at least slap it with some materials. I'm just going to slap it with blank material. We know what's going to be metal. Let's bring up our reference though, because we don't know anything, do we? I'm going to press my hotkey to bring up my screen folder. And we're just going to bring our image in, but we can't do it if there's a little pop-up menu up. So TN, let's take a look at our image, and let's just, this is a different type of metal. You know, metal A, metal B is all I'm seeing. This can be metal B, not that color. Actually, we want to select this entire piece, and we want to give this the other material. So, you know, metal A, metal B is what I'm thinking. This one is the same color, so let's actually assign this the color of, let's see, I'm thinking that that's metal A, which we're correct on. We're gonna give this plastic. You know, I know I'm just saying words and we're just playing with blank materials, but you know, that's how it be though. Or at least for me, you know, I'm just showing y'all why these systems are made the way they are, because I'll be thinking in placeholders, and I'll be right back, and I'll deal with that in a minute. And you know, that's me IRL. My girlfriend was saying I'm a loser because I get it done in videos, but in real life, like a loser, stricken with indecision, unable to make a choice on anything. I mean, maybe not as terrible as that, but we have fun with each other. You know, tit for tat, we call it. So, something like that. However, we want to deal with the main material on this object, so I'm just going to go and Control tilde, and let's just remove the actual material. I love using the hops helper, because if you use the new material button, it will add a new material courtesy of hops. So instead of adding just a regular blender material, it will actually add a material that's like part of our blank material system, meaning it's randomly calculated, resulting in something rather unique on your result. So just like that, we've now given this thing materials, and let's jump over to render mode, and we see that our materials are nothing like what we were talking about, but that's just a scroll away, I'm telling you. We select this particular object, and let's just shift click material scroll, and we just scroll until we are somewhere close. And looking at this thing, I actually want to put a bevel on it, maybe press L, so we bevel all the edges that are marked just to enhance our high a little bit. And we just get in and play with our roughness. I mean, really it doesn't matter. We're just setting this up just for the viewport, just because we're being weirdos. This one, I feel like this is a little bit on the wider side. And just finding the right roughness. Let's pull it back out. For this one, we could either shift scroll through blank materials till we find something close to where we're needing to start at, which is, you know, something like that. Probably definitely want to get rid of metallicity because it isn't metallic at all. It's plastic. So I do love darkening matte principal shaders. Just looks so great. And so for this, we'll just shift scroll until we find something on the matte side. We'll adjust its roughness, you know, give it the same color as the reference. For this one, we see that there's two different colors. So I'm just going to scroll through these materials until I find something, you know, pretty matte, and then we're going to make it green, but we got, tongue-tied. We're going to give it a more subdued green, and then I'm going to go in edit mode of this mesh, which it's still a curve right now, so I'm just going to have to make it a mesh. I know, hard decisions, guys, but, you know, sometimes when I'm looking at the goal, I just start making crazy hard decisions, like, the type of decisions that when the client's like inevitably, hey man, I need to change. I'm like, oh, jeez. What do you mean I got to rotate you want it from a different angle? But yeah, it happens. That's also why you don't see me photoshopping that hard, because clients will always be like, yeah, I need it from 800 angles now. It's like, you son of a biscuit. And I'm in. So let's select everything. Press Q, settings, export, OBJ, and we are just replacing, well, we aren't replacing anything. We are just exporting a new high. But let's not export the high yet. In the back is so boring. You know, this is me. We don't have any back, oh, Jesus. We do have a back showing, oh God, what is this? Just kidding. But seriously, oh God. Looks like we got some more work to do, don't we? That's how life be. That's what I mean. When you follow a ref, you're always wrong. You'll always be wrong. That sounds like really damning, but you know, when you can laugh at it, it's actually not that bad. So we probably want to make that piece, don't we? You know, we made that extra space in our UV, and because of that, we're just going to add a new collection. Just, you know, we'll just place it at the top, and let's just try modeling that piece. I mean, I don't know what piece that is, so I'm just going to just think real fast. Just, you know, got to make this shape, hurry, you know, gun to my head, right? Let's save the file, of course. And, you know, that's one way we could split it, but we could also split it using mirror. I know, really weird, right? Go in and talk about using mirror and just hitting it with a bisect, but it just does it, you know, and it's beautiful every time. So I can tell you that the way that I'm doing it, inefficient and not very smart. Like, this isn't the smartest way to have done this, but like I said, we're just thinking fast. And did we parent? No, we did not. Good. You know, sometimes you don't want parenting to occur. And we'll give it some auto smooth just so we can just, and we're going to cut in with a subdivision level of 3 because otherwise it's going to just get crazy on the correction aspect. Maybe something like that. And let us just press Control A, visual geometry to mesh. And we're just going to get verti-mergy with it. But, you know, the goal of these is really not so much to even talk about pure quad topology or any of that. It's just to, you know, use HardOps in a casual fashion and export some things and just have some fun with baking and texturing and maybe a little sketchfab depending. You know, sketchfab is part of the great evil now, so just gotta watch it. I see them talking about upload credits. I'm like, man, am I going to make it through this whole month before I have to buy Pro? Which I don't have any problem with. But I don't know how many models I'd be uploading nowadays. You know, I'd be seeing people talking about using website rippers to rip models. I'm like, that's always what ruins things, isn't it? So we have a double somewhere. I just know it. But we don't. What we have is a shadow. And also, why does it look so... There we go. Let's get out of solid mode. And just looking at it and pondering and just thinking, like, is this close enough to our image? Let's try adding a bevel on it. We'll press 3 to make it a subdivision capable bevel. And for this to work, we probably want to deal with this area a little bit. Let's try Alt-V, wireframe, just take a look at it. So many combinations to try, but only one will succeed. Let's select everything, and we will just remove doubles, which corrected it for some reason. So it's always just one point in there to just curse you. So with this piece now made, I'm just going to press R4-5, and you can smite me in the comments for not modeling absolutely perfect, but you know, it happens. Also, I just saw this thing. And you know, for this piece, I'm going to duplicate it, and we're going to just do something different. You know, I'm always downpacking these things manually, but this is a good time for me to open up QRemesher, set it up for, I don't know, 500. And maybe adaptive at 100. I mean, just being random. Let's also select this and mark it sharp, which looks like this. And let's quad remesh it. And what do we get? Well, we got a low. That's done. So I'm going to move this. Well, first, let's take this and parent it to our high. So we have something like this going on. And I'm just going to move this to our high collection. And we just want to move this to the back and position this. Like usually with this sort of stuff, I try to work really fast because otherwise I start to realize, also, why is this moving the way it is? Let's clear parent, keep transformation, R90, and just pretend like it just wasn't trying to get weird on us like that. And from this side, we could see it. You know, we could see it like in perspective from the side, and it was also rotated like 45 degrees. So, geez, this thing was huge. You know, this thing is where you open it, slip the fluid in. But let us move this other piece to, that one's the high, this one's the low. Let's move it to the low. And we're also going to give this the same material as this one. It's probably easier to just select them both. We could also name the materials at this point, but why are we still dealing with this? We should be talking about the UV aspect of things. For this, I'm going to select this face, Shift G, normal, and we'll delete that, press U, unwrap. This is what our wrap looks like. And as weird as it sounds, I think we can rock with that. So we're going to give this the same material as the rest of its low compatriots. And by going in edit mode, we can just select this single piece and get it to fit. You know, probably should be bigger as far as UV importance, but we still have other pieces that we could be adding to this too. So let's now export this properly. We're now at 3,828. So I'm always thinking about mobile sizes like 500 and 300 and sub 1,000, and I really gotta stop thinking like that because it's terrible. I mean, even mobile phones are super powerful now. I mean, I can scan with my iPad. I was gonna say with my iPhone, but I don't upgrade my iPhone every year. You know, Apple got me messed up if they think I'm paying them every single year for every phone. Like, you might as well wait every other year, and that way the phone is truly an upgrade experience. Otherwise, it'll just be boring. So now we're just waiting for the high to export, and we have the high out. And just like that, we've went in and enhanced this and given it some base materials for us to be able to present it to, you know, ourselves in Blender, but also, you know, went through the process of adding it to the low and use quad remesher, which actually worked out quite nice. I mean, some parts I can look at and just tell, like, hey, quad remesher, it's going to shine on that one. You better believe it. But other parts I can also tell that, you know, quad remesher isn't going to be so good on. I mean, if we had quad remesher to do this, it might make me look like an idiot, you know, just do it in 2 seconds. That'll make me feel real bad. So I'm just not going to do that to myself today. But now we're just looking at our final result just in the viewport. And let's also give ourselves a camera. So layer 1 is the layer where we had everything. Let's Alt H and bring back what we have, delete that. And, you know, also first, let's just put a floor, blank material. And on this layer, we're just going to deselect everything, press Q, and add a camera for presentation. And we're doing this on the layer by itself because we want to have the high by itself so we can quietly deal with the high without all this nonsense happening. Otherwise, it'll be a very long day if we have cameras and lights and all this stuff happening on the wrong collections. I'm going to move the camera here without being in camera view because it's just easier that way. Believe me. We'll scale it out. And I can already tell you that seeing the background is just not my cup of tea. So I'm going to extrude this up. We'll grab this and bevel it. Press Q, sharpen. You know, let's select the boundaries, mark it sharp, give it a couple levels of subdivision. And we want to shift while dragging this in the outliner to parent it to our empty. So basically that means that this will rotate around with our camera for all time. So now it's just a matter of us just placing things adequately. So something like that. And then we just want to get our camera just right. Maybe turn off wireframe. And we probably shouldn't have parented our plane to it just yet, so we'll just uncouple that and at least move our empty freely, scale it a little bit, just get it exactly where we want, and then we can, you know, reparent it. So this is basically now our result. We just have a nice render setup. I'm going to press Alt V and we'll hit it with EVHQ, Alt VV, in order to choose which environment we have set up for this. So, you know, we could go with something like that. That's like really boilerplate though. I'm trying to not be so cliche with my product renderings looking like literal product renderings. Also, I want to move the cable to be perfectly flat with the bottom, but maybe something like that. And then let's snap our cursor here so that way I can press Alt VB and we could just begin rolling a blank light setup into our scene. So something like that, and then we could just scroll through this like so. We could also go to layer 3 and look at that one and also scroll through it. So by pressing shift 3 we could turn off the low and the high, kind of like Marmoset. And Marmoset I often turn my low off and my high on just to get alternative versions to look at whenever I'm dealing with it. So this is almost that same experience, but really we're just drifting in Blender at this point. We should really just get on with Substance Painter and begin texturing the low, because living on the high is what Hops is all about. However, in people's general line of work, they find themselves breaking down models professionally, and that's where these videos come in. Did you guys notice that I forgot to name the back piece before export? It's so easy to make mistakes at the end, but we are just going to press F2 and we're going to call this back extra underscore low, and then we'll select that text and copy it. We'll go to the high, we'll press F2, paste it, put high at the end, and it looks like we did ended up put these pieces on the wrong layer. So I'm just going to select the empty, Shift G, children, and then reselect the empty, and we could just press M and actually move that to the proper collection. And it looks like that almost worked out. Let's move that to the proper collection. And so now we have just all the high objects here. That's the thing, we want to keep our collections pure when it comes dealing with this stuff, otherwise it starts to get a little hairy. I'm not trying to export lights on my OBJs, but we will just go ahead and re-export the low with all the proper object naming, or export the high with all the proper object naming. Waiting again is our penance for making such a mistake. But it's so easy to just be hasty and end up with a bad bake because you forgot to name some things whenever you're using exploded mesh naming baking, which is just one of my favorite things about baking. Baking used to be so much worse before explicit name was a thing. I think that was like a thing in 2018 or something. Whenever this program first came out, we were just reminiscing over its first version earlier. So we will just export this OBJ, and instead of typing low, I'm just going to click on the word low in our list, and we're just going to export that. And now we can finally jump over to Substance Painter. My apologies. All right, let's do this. So here we are in Adobe Substance Painter. They bought this bitch. So we are just going to click on File, and we are going to load our low. And first thing, we're going to click on Auto Unwrap, and let's just click on it and just see what our Auto Unwrap gives us. And I'm going to press F2, and this actually looks like what we unwrapped it to be. So I'm going to click on New, and let's just try that again. I've been trying to prompt Auto Unwrap to happen just so that way we can have some fun with it, but oh, here we go. We want to recompute everything, and then now let us have some fun. So if you see the bar of waiting, then you know that your UVs are being calculated. And these are what our auto UVs look like. And I just look at these all the time and I just ponder, like, what? I mean, surely there's some edge marking algorithms that could be used for like calculating the, I shouldn't be giving tips to the Borg, but just something I get a chuckle about. I love to see machines have a hard time. People are always like, aren't you worried about machines replacing us? Well, not me personally. Let them. All they can do is just do our jobs better, making our jobs easier. But with all the stuff that comes out that you think would make everyone redundant, it just makes everyone smarter. I don't think anyone's going to be stuffing their portfolio full of metahumans and getting a job anytime soon, unless they're trying to showcase their rendering skills or UE skills or whatever the case may be. But who's applying for jobs using pictures of humans? Usually people are going for things a little bit more character oriented. So here we are, just hitting bake, just talking about automation. Let's press F1 and look at what we have. And this area is like my point of contention that I'll always be revisiting, even though it's so small and minuscule. And once we start slapping it with materials and doing smart things and wear, it will not even matter. However, we look at some of these areas and what is this? Is that actually, you know what I think it is if we remove the ambient occlusion, we see that the mesh looks almost all right, except for the things happening on our edges, which, you know, do you want to tolerate that fringing happening on your edges? You know, it's like a deep philosophical question. Let's go in and bake and just have some fun just with baking. So I'm going to turn off average normals, and we're just going to bake that again. And we got our eye on this back. We probably also could hit it with some 8x super subsampling, you know, whatever, but that is what average normals off, which actually kind of looks worse. I feel like there are some things that we could do for our low to make it work, or even build a cage. But before even getting to that, let's try it with subsampling at 8. And with ambient occlusion, we also want to self-occlusion only same mesh name, and let's see, only same mesh name, just to avoid any weirdness happening, because it'll look, it's a different type of asset whenever you have your ambient occlusion stuff being baked as if it's all completely together. Usually when it's separate, so that way it can fall apart and be influenced by the world. But waiting on bakes, story of my life. Not really, story of someone else's life. But we look at this, and aside from these black fringes on the edge that I'm sure can be rectified by, let's see, what is our resolution? All right, our resolution set to something good, but we should check our options, because I have more than one program installed on this computer, and I don't have to take this. I don't have to spend all day fighting this, just kidding. But in all seriousness, I do have Substance, or Toolbag 4, which Toolbag 4 is not bad. It's a strange little application, but like Substance, I've watched it grown mightily over the years, and they remain the same. Just classic old tool bag. So I'm trying to find my piston where I have all of my files at. And so first we will just click on, where is it? New Baker. That's not Baker, it's the bread. And first we'll drag the low over. Actually, there's a better way. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm being a noob. What we want to do is use the quick loader, which will point us to the correct directory, and we'll choose our low and we'll choose our high. And this program just knows. They know what's up. They'll put it in the correct location. The other thing is that this is getting in the way of our keystrokes, but we want to bake our normals. We want to bake the ambient occlusion. We also want to go in our ambient occlusion settings and ignores grouping. We do not want to ignore grouping. We want to respect grouping. It's kind of a weird way to put it. You got to talk to yourself logically to understand sometimes what an option is telling you. The other thing is that when it comes to our actual textures themselves, I'm just looking for where they're getting stored. Let us take this time to, this is not a good location for this. We're going to go back to Power Save, jump over to SP, and create a directory relevant to this called piston 42, I believe is the number that we're on. I could be wrong. And we're going to save these as PNG. Piston. We could give this all the samples, and often I do, but that also does take a while too. So usually that's for when I'm really sending this baby out the door and it's never coming back. So let us just hit bake and just pray for the best. We'll click on a preview button in order to preview. And let's just stretch our window out. And that is not bad at all. However, I'm pretty sure there's a thing that prevents these normals from working over in Substance Painter whenever I import them, but we're just going to try it anyways. So let me bring up that directory. Always save things to where they are in my power saves because it causes them to pop up in my Dropbox, which gives me a notification of where they actually pop up at for their reuse. So let's go back to Substance Painter. But I should probably delete this power saves folder and start all the way over because it's just too many files. I'm weird. Like I was talking with Reed the other day about a bunch of old videos. He's like, make sure you back them up. I was like, fine, you're right. Probably should back them up, but I never ever check again. So we're just going to drag these images, place them, and one of my favorite windows comes up. Undefined, this is a texture, texture, texture. Import textures to this current project and nowhere else because we don't want to see it. When I first saw that window, I used to keep things in future projects, and that was just completely accidental. This is what our normal looked like that we brought from Marmoset. We bring it over here, and we replace it in the viewport. This is what we got. Let's actually take a look at this map. Can we double click it and see it full screen? No, but we can double click it and bring up a Windows Explorer window for it. And let's look for our texture. This is not Substance. Y'all gotta... Can I hover over it and see it bigger? Alright, and we're just looking at that. Let's look at our image. I feel like this mesh has taken a beating. So, you know, one of the weird things is I just can't get over having to turn off smoothing on my mesh. It's just so hideous. I mean, why can't I have auto smoothing? You know, normally I never export a mesh that doesn't look good in this format. So let's turn auto smooth back on. However, let's try hitting 60, maybe 90. You know, I'll accept that. And we are just going to press Q, export, OBJ. And we'll put an A on this one because we don't know if this is going to be problematic. I'm always careful about the things that I do on video because it'll take so long if I'm making mistakes, you guys. So I try to not make a lot of mistakes in videos because otherwise these videos will go on too long and start driving you guys nuts. And these normals just look atrocious. So let's just bake the textures. We're just going to bake them all over again and see what we get. But it looks like Marmoset is just not going to let us bring them over. I'm pretty sure it's one of the normal settings that I have to change. I just need to do some research for it off camera because figuring it out would take us like 40 minutes and nobody's got time for that. Also, look how long this bake be taking. This is powered by GPU. Oh. Wow. It actually looks so much worse. How does it look so much worse? Let us go back to bake. And let's turn off average normals. Let's try baking it again. And we're baking too many of these textures. We don't need to bake all of them. This is the area where it truly breaks down. So we definitely know what can't go, even though we really want it to. However, this does make me so curious that I want to get down to the bottom of why this headache occurs, because it only occurs there. Everywhere else, it almost looks adequate. This area almost looks adequate, but it's completely not adequate. So let's try a few things. I'm going to basically Let's save this file. We're going to just save it. And let's just select everything. And my first thought was we're just going to have to put an edge split on it. Just try it. Let's set it to something like, I don't know, 25. And I'm going to press Control L. Copy modifiers. And maybe 25 was a little harsh. We'll set it to 30. Control L. Copy modifiers. You know, maybe 33. Control L. Copy modifiers. And something like that will work. And we see that our poly count has gone up. So this one is going to be exported as a B file. I was having a discussion with the people. We were talking about the importance of sharpening and how you can use sharpening to kind of hack it, which is the last idea I want to try. We were talking about the beauty of UVs and how, you know, to get a perfect bake, you have to be so cruel to the UVs, and it's just not ready for it yet. So let's press on edit and choose project configuration, and we are going to bring in our B file, which now is this edge split version of the mesh. So we're now looking at it. Let us go in and just bake these maps and take a moment to pray to our gods or hawks or bears, you know, whatever you follow. Let us pray. Maybe these UVs will come out all right. However, that is optimistic thinking. So here we are looking at it, and this area almost looks a little bit better whenever we zoom out and then pull in. However, I believe the ambient occlusion is still... No, it appears to be fine. You know, I'm probably hallucinating, being very particular about these images. However, this piece is completely unacceptable. Look at it, it's just terrible. Everything we do actually makes it worse. So with this particular piece, we are going to turn off auto smooth and also remove the edge split. And let us just re-export this. Q, export, OBJ. And this one will be our D. Really take, or actually our C. So it's our fourth attempt at exporting, considering that our first one didn't have a letter attached. And back to Substance Painter we go, where we can choose project configuration, load our C file. Visually terrible. We'll go under bake maps. We also want to make sure average normals is back on. I'll never turn it off unless it helps, but in this case only holy water can help us with this bake. And I'm pretty sure we'll be at least back to where we started, which is a better result than what we were looking at. And we could probably continue on with the texture job unless we want to continue on this super obsessive quest for the perfect bake, which we can do that, but it's completely not necessary. Sometimes you just got to draw a line. Just look at it and say, you know, this thing's going to be painted black. It will probably be fine. You know, who will be checking it so close on sketchfab? So just looking at it, and I think I also want to import a version that has all the screws properly placed. So whenever it comes to Blender, they don't actually have a system for just placing an object at the center points of other objects, just replacing it. So it's just something that I'm pondering. You know, anytime that there's something missing, my first thought is it should probably be added. So this low is just for the purposes of presentation in the viewport. Let's bring this down. We want to remove the mirror. GY will snap to this vert. And we'll just duplicate this one. I was pondering which one I should duplicate in order to pull this off, but we'll go with these. And we'll duplicate it over, rotate it, Shift D, RX90, RZ90. Looks like when we snap into the wrong one, I just correct it with the next one. Also, we want to have closest enabled for this, but it looks like that's already on. Let's try just setting this to face. Alright, this one's really giving me the business today. Let's try it again. Alright, and now we'll actually do. Screw just didn't want to go for a moment. So now we have just one more to place, and then we can re-export this and have this low as just kind of our presentation version, and also the one that we'll be able to send out to sketchfab, because otherwise we'll just be looking at this the whole time without screws, and you know, we've modeled it with these screws, so no need for all that. We'll also rotate them slightly just so things aren't looking exactly samey. Settings, export, OBJ. And this one is our D mesh, but it's definitely not for baking. It's just for presentation. So with that, let's go back to Painter one more time. And we're just going to go to project configuration and just bring in the D. And this is now what we're looking at. So with this, we are now ready to proceed. One more thing that's also driving me crazy before we start painting is this particular piece should actually encompass this. We made it a little bit smaller over the course of us working. So I've incremented the save to be an A file of this 3 chapter. And so placing it something like that will be a little bit better for me. And we will just export this OBJ, replacing the one that we just created, which was the D. And then from here we can actually go back to Painter where we already have this very nice bake. And we can just choose project configuration and just reload the D once again. And now we are truly ready to begin. And we can just obsess with that later on. So for this one, I'm going to take a slightly different strategy where we just add a fill layer. And we just start off using our ID from the first. So we will just go to our material node, and I'm just going to type, or the material area, I'm just going to type in ID. Let's go to base color. We'll just type in ID. What is this map called? Let's see. Color map. So let's just type in color map, and here we go. So now we've at least slapped this with some basic material colors that were the ones that we created in Blender, and as a result of making an ID map, we at least have a good starting point. So just lowering the roughness, we can now truly begin. So I'm just going to do what I normally do, which is just begin slapping it with just blank materials, or just these preliminary materials that they provide. So I'm going to right click. Let's add ourselves a mask with color selection. This means that I'll need to pick a color in order to take this over. And these are all just base colors. We'll get more intimate with them as we go. Just finding the right roughness. Let's drag the next one over. And we'll do the same thing, mask with color selection. And I feel like this one's a little bit more into yellow, but we don't want to go too hard over there. Just a little gander into the yellow. Also maybe a little shinier, but maybe not too shiny. Once I start texturing things, I don't make things as shiny as I usually do over on the Blender side of things. Next, we want to talk about that's one of the things I do dislike about substance. If you have a layer selected, you just start clicking things, you will begin adding you'll begin changing that layer versus drag and dropping. We've now created a different iteration. So let's add a mask with color selection. And for this one, we probably don't even want the color. You know, we could turn color off. And let's say we actually wanted the normal or the height. The height is also good. The height gets converted to normal on the way out, I think. So that's how I deal with that. So Let's just scroll through our, what is this? Textures. Yeah, we're just scrolling through our textures until we find something that looks somewhat predictable. And I get blind when I see that I have like 800,000 options, but we'll survive. Let's drag and drop this one on the height. And that one is a little more, let's see, we want something to give this the kind of look of plastic. You know, plasma is going to be too crazy too. And also the height is just out of control on this thing right now. You know, we want something a little more subtle, but also definitely a lot more plentiful on the surface. You know, we could always go to the height itself and just lower it down to something that's completely controllable. You know, always subtle with me to something like that. Something that you almost shouldn't even feel it existing, but we'll just dial it back till it's just micro specs happening and it's taking places in all the areas where we want it so far. So far so good. Let us drag over another plastic onto the model. We'll just right click, mask with color selection. And surprisingly, it only selected this area. I was pondering that for a moment. I was like, are we about to get a dose of reality? So maybe not stark white. Stark white's a little too perfect. And for this one, I'm going to right click and add a paint layer. Let's see, we'll add a paint and then press 4. And we can actually just choose to fill a mesh. So if we select both of them, now both of them have that same material. And if we just turn off color influence, we're now just dealing with just the roughness of this. So we could make it like really rough, really shiny. We could press C, start going through our channels. So this is what our roughness looks like. And we could just start dialing that and just stick with the original color that we were given. So on a roughness level, this is what we're looking at with our mesh. Let's press M. And really we've just kind of laid down our base colors. You know, all this is just base to me. So we'll get it right as we get further with it, you know, but for me it's always just setting down base colors and then just getting really crazy with the roughness until the clock is hit, and then it's like, all right, hopefully that looks good, hopefully they like it, you know, just a little artistic with it, but always a little random. Which one is dealing with the middle area? Nothing is. We never gave it a material, so we need to give it one more material. You know, let's try plastic PVC. And this one also, this one could have just done the job for this one. We did have to try creating a material, but ours does look a little bit cooler in my opinion, you know. Just saying. So material, mask with color selection, and let's just go and get rid of our color. You know, we don't need it. We have everything set up courtesy of Blender. So here we are so far with our asset just being textured in Substance Painter on a basic level. You know, it's always good to just build it up in layers, just like a model. You want to block it in and then go up. I approach texturing kind of the same way. We're just going, wow, that one looks awesome. You know, I would keep that one, but that one's just so static. We want something a little bit more. Wow, that was also cool. I mean, you start dealing with hard surface items in this thing, and man, start getting me excited. I'm like, ooh, baby. Except for this. That part is actually kind of tragic. We're going to have to fix that. We just can't let such mistakes live. Everywhere else, like this area I was all concerned about, yeah. I mean, meh. You know, it happens. That's life. So you know what we have to do in order to fix that? In order to fix this, we have to basically go back to Blender. And for this piece, we have to disable auto smooth. We also have to disable edge split. And let us just export OBJ. And we are going to just call this E. However, we can't do such things. We have to go back to our previous file. You know, once you start complicating the lore like I'm doing with all this stuff, it starts to get complex and you find yourself capable of making great mistakes. This is what we're baking. And this is our piece, which is actually right where we want it. I'm pretty sure that one of our previous iterations actually is set up for that. So instead of re-importing, let us just go to project configuration and we are just going to downgrade to B. You know, what did we do on B? Actually, let us take that back to A. Because I saw that mesh. I saw what I saw and I didn't like what I saw. So we are going back to A. Bingo, that's our ticket. So from here, we will just bake and everything is already set. So let us bake these textures. I almost feel like I should bake them in 4K and then lower it down to 2K, but then, you know, we're still at 2K. What am I doing? Just getting obsessive, just taking up all my RAM. Might as well read my email while I'm waiting on this bake. Just kidding, I don't have any email. I'm a loser. Like I'm always telling you guys. So if we zoom in, that will do. That will be a ponder. You know, these mask tolerances, you know, we might need to start putting some blurs on them. But now we at least have a better looking bake for this area. So let us just go back to our A file that we were messing with. And what do we want to do? We want to grab this, scale it up, because we forgot to save it before. Just the growing pains of life, you just forget things. Let's save that. And we'll just re-export this OBJ. And this one will just be replacing our D file. So nothing serious there. And all the D file is just what we're presenting in this viewport for us to work on, because I don't want to look at a hydraulic pump absent of all of its bolts. But then we lose all of this. So let's go back over and see what happened. Who did that to us? Is it this mesh not having auto smoothing? Actually, why did that happen? And why did this happen? Alright, it's starting to play with my mind a little bit. Project configuration. Let us reload C. And let us go in and bake these once more. Just beginning to give me a headache. But I feel we are close to the conclusion. So we must just soldier on. Alright, now we have our bake and all of our screws present, but we still have this kind of strange seam happening, so I'm just going to troubleshoot that later. But for now, let us take this moment to press Ctrl S and save this. But we want to use the same naming that we also have in our blend file, so piston 04_3, piston 4_3, and we'll save our file. And finally, let us get this party started. But with this, we will be fighting meshes all day. In fact, I'm just curious on who is the culprit. Let's remove ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion was a mistake. Let's remove the normal map. Normal map is the culprit. Is there a seam in between this? We'll never know. Let's select all of these, and we'll just press Ctrl G to make these their own group. And we'll just call this group base. So just looking at it and thinking about what I want to do to this, let's just start off adding our fill layer, jump over to textures, and I'm just going to drag a cloud onto the roughness. Let's disable every channel except for roughness. And I'm just looking at it and thinking about what sort of contribution we want to provide with it. And I love these really stark contributions we're able to provide with things just on the roughness and how they impact everything else. However, we see that there's some breakage in it that's making it look inconsistent. And that's where usually I go from UV projection to triplanar, which will give me a slightly smoother result. And also I can use the handy dandy manipulator to move things around. Let's also go ahead and play with our scale, just see what we're able to pull out of it. But I think that the original scale was actually fine. You know, going too micro is also a problem that users face, so you want to try to avoid it when possible. So from here, I think we can now just go under mask. You know, anytime I start messing up, I just take a mask and the mask will just dial it back to something reasonable. Like now we have dust as our filter. Let's undo that and maybe look at edge dirty. So if we alt click, we can see what our mask is looking like, and this one is actually doing anything based on all of our texture work. So maybe something more like occlusion. And if we look at this, this is what we're basically placing it in, which alt clicking is a good way to just find out what's happening with your mask. For me, I have a blender mentality. You know, where's my viewer node at? Let's also invert it and just begin playing with different textures and just dragging sliders. You know, story of our life, just sliders. Let's press M and just see what we're looking at as far as its contribution. And it's almost not looking terrible. You know, we want it to be subtle though. If we make it look like this, people will definitely know that we started 3D yesterday. But when you dial it back, you know, you want to get it just so subtle. I just can't over explain it. You know, just something that you barely see. You know, it's just between you and the client. Just little subtleties. But let's move on. We'll add another one. This time I'm going to just disable everything except the instead of normal. We're just going to party on the height. You know, we could party on the normal, but we have to use normal things, but normals and normal accessories. But on height is also a hootenanny and a holler. Every time I see that effect, I just think of ZBrush and the surface tools, you know, because it was really cool whenever they added it, and seeing it here, it's still very impressive. I'm telling you, every time I start falling in love with these programs, I start feeling guilty. It's like, man, these guys are going to get me. They're going to break my heart. Let's click on seed a little bit, just get random with it. You know, maybe a little triplanarism. And we are really eating all of this thing's lunch. If we wanted to make this thing look like 100 years in the future, like it's just been sandblasted by... I'm thinking of that gun in Red Faction that used to make things dissolve. I love Red Faction Guerrilla. Super obsessed with that game. But we could dial it back to something reasonable. And we could also put a smart mask on it, but it may not be entirely required. I mean, look at us. We're adding these things, and then we're taking them down to 2. You know, we got to calm down. It's almost like I'm doing nothing, except I'm doing everything, just building it up in stages. Like I said, the way that I show isn't the recommended way, or even how. It's just, you know, what I gathered reading the manuals. Like, huh, I guess that can work. I'm going to go to my mask editor and we're going to invert that and see that, you know, inverted, this thing is just out of there. So let's press M and see what we're actually bringing in. So there's just all this subtle wear and stuff happening. You know, if we wanted it real broad, it looks something like that, but we want to keep it something like that. You know, you almost don't even know it's happening. You know, we could probably also filter it from happening on the metal if we wanted to keep this part just looking really nice, but we're just being random. So let's continue. We'll add another material. And for this one, once again, we're going to be playing with the roughness. I just love the roughness. I feel like I need to play with it for a million hours to truly understand all the work that it has whenever you get it. I mean, some of these textures, you just drop them on it and they just start telling a story, at least to me, a story of a night out drinking and getting into a fist fight with the Yakuza in the street. I don't know. But there's definitely a story to tell. We are going to change this from normal to screen, and maybe from screen to multiply. One of these will make it where it pretty much contributes only shine instead of only diminishment. Is probably the easiest way I can rationalize it with my type of brain. But what we were looking at before, it was taking away roughness, but it was also adding to it. So one or the other. And let's choose a filter for this one. Let's see what water drips is looking like. We'll alt click it, and I guess it lives up to its name, doesn't it? And which ones are we going to start pulling? Maybe this one. Here's our top-down gradient. World space normal ain't doing anything. We could also bring in some scratches. You know, scratches never hurt anybody. Now let's press M and just look at this without anything interfering, just so we see exactly what we're bringing to the party. If we press M, or C actually, we could begin cycling through our channels. So this is what our roughness is looking like, and of course anything at 100, I didn't say you should do that. You know, just bring it back. Let's bring it back. We're just building it up, having a build up party. But really our work is totally done. I mean, our goal was to get something that looked like the reference image, just having some fun. I mean, we could really over obsess with this and bake to completion, but really I feel like there's some research I'm gonna need to do off camera. I might do an addendum chapter talking about things, but really at the end we are there. We're at that final destination. So let's put this stuff in a group, and we're just going to call it noise 1. So this is what our base looks like. This is what we add to it. If we press C, we can actually look at what we do as far as roughness goes. When it comes to metallicity, we didn't do anything because I don't see anything that is either metal or not metal or less metal in this. Everything is pretty much actually metal. That is metal. There's no under metal that's not metal involved with these things. So I believe we could probably call it done. However, when it comes to Substance Painter, I do enjoy also enabling shadows and turning it to intensive because, you know, my computer's not a chump. And let's just start getting a little more intimate with our viewport, because we could also make things look better. You know, the post effects Yeebus too, powered by silicon. I used to be so excited about seeing that. And we're just going to go in and just start activating things. And the secret is always subtlety. I always just dial everything back until it's almost as if it's not on at all. This goes to show that I'm just tired of it all. So we definitely don't need any of that. And if we do a vignette, I've been telling everybody, I'm like, you know, when you put a vignette, it's like you're saying, welcome to the so-and-so show. So if you're going to do it, you got to do it so subtle that people are asking like, hey, did you do a vignette? Not, oh my God, it's a vignette, run for your life. So we're just getting in, just playing with some settings, you know, get in, play with our gamma exposure. For me, I always either lower the exposure and raise the gamma, or vice versa, depending on what result I'm trying to go for. But we're just getting random with it, just seeing what each of our parameters are doing. And with our color correction, we could really get intimate with our contrast to get things to reflect the way they're supposed to in a viewport. But when it comes to texturing, we definitely want to turn all of these post effects off so we can go back to classic boring view in order to actually do our work. But for now, we're at least looking at it kind of in an extra light. Like I would go in iRay, but iRay is just such a saga for me and a struggle to actually get things looking absolutely right. So I'm also going to change the environment to something that's a little bit more flattering for our object. Suddenly every look is just not working. You know, we might have to just go running back to our original. But I feel like it's our shadows. Just having shadows, they were just too hard. So maybe just lowering our opacity will allow us to actually get back in business with this. So looking at this piece, I'm thinking that we can probably right click this, add a black mask, or actually we can right click and add a black mask, which means that we can press 4 and we want to do a polygon fill. I was just thinking about which area I want to do a polygon fill on. And so we want to polygon fill all of this, which gives us the effect there, but we can prevent it from showing up in the wrong area. So we could even just tap that just to omit it and have our piston actually looking very perfect while the rest of the body is just showing all sorts of damage. And I think that the effect that we have mitigated via the drops, which was probably the last one we added, this one, we just want to lessen. You know, anything that's dominating, I just feel I need to go in and actually relax it so that way we can truly enjoy the surface. You know, I think it's a waste to just make things so nice on a modeling side just for us to go in a texturing program and just absolutely destroy them. I was telling one of my friends recently, I was like, is there a setting between just destroying these settings and making it actually look proper, you know? Because, you know, in my future, people aren't just throwing stuff on the ground and kicking it around and treating it like poo. I mean, these electronics matter. Someone put this together in a factory. You know, factories matter. Just kidding. I'm like out here fighting for computer rights. Don't be out there abusing computer guys. But with this piece, I think I do want to go to this one and maybe just lower our roughness a little bit. You know, we're so diffuse with this stuff initially, and we don't have to be that way. Also, to top this video off, what I always do, and not saying you should do this, it's just, I don't know, it's just a look I like, and that is multiplying my AO. So let's just grab our ambient occlusion, set it to multiply, and of course everything is subtlety. So we see where it's actually being added in, but you know, something just real minor just to give us that effect of dust. And we can truly stand back and admire our handiwork. And with that, we can wrap up this video. Hopefully everyone liked it. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. We should at least export this to sketchfab so that way we can see what we get. So I'm just going to choose Bake Mesh Maps. And that's the wrong option. I need to go to File and choose Export Textures. And Output Template. We are just going to scroll to sketchfab. I suppose it starts with an S, so I forgot how to export to sketchfab. Could have sworn it was a template. Oh, here we go. Is that... Wait, they're at the top. So all these... Why would they have all these options and then have an actual option for sketchfab at the top? Stop messing with me. Alright, so... Based on each texture size, fine. I'm not even going to mess with anything. We're just going to choose export. And oh, JPEG. They gotta be JPEG. Let's go back. They gotta be JPEG, so Sketchfab is like, hey, don't be sending us those 16-bit nothing. Sketchfab is like, I ain't messing around. Don't be saying that's nothing. Just whatever trash you got. Just this is a piston 4_3. This is the piston result of the tutorial on the piston. This thing's actually an actuator, but piston actuator actually an actuator. No one will ever be searching for these tags. I'm just messing around. So let us just export this, and then it'll pop up over on Sketchfab where the party continues. So bringing over our window in a borderless Firefox, we're just sitting here waiting. That's how it be. I just click on the View 3D Model button the moment that they send me an email and I receive it on this watch on my wrist. I don't even wait for the website to load up. I just jump into it. So that's what I did this time too. Yeah, I do love my ground shadows. And we just want to get them oriented. Let's bring in a lighting preset. The lighting presets are kind of cool on here too. I wish there were more. Maybe I'll stop throwing free tips out. But man, if I worked for these companies, I would be changing things, let me tell you. You know, let me just be in the idea room. Just be a fly on the wall at first. Then I'll be running the meetings. Just kidding, but I'm always pondering things. Wow, I don't think I ever messed with all this stuff before, but obviously we are going to crank it like Soulja Boy. You know, maybe not so much sharpness, but, you know, our old buddy Bloom. Always got to make Bloom just the most subtle suggestion ever. And then it'll look great. Otherwise, you're making a mistake. But I see with the sharpness is kind of peaking. So I do want to calm down on the sharpness. Also, temporal anti-aliasing is already enabled, so we don't have to worry about it. And we're not even going to get into some of the other stuff that's available on the site, but we are going to stretch the window out so we can see everything. And let's just set this up for presentation. So this time the experience was a lot smoother because I didn't use ABC files. You know, I understand the moral of the story is never use an ABC file, but I need to use ABC files because of the animations, and I can't be using FBXs because I'm not dealing with bones. But this isn't an open call to pitch me on FBXs. Seriously, I'll scream. And we're just lowering our focal length just so we can look at this a little bit more flatteringly inside of our view. So with that, we can save our settings. It only took us about 5 minutes. Now it's been 5 minutes, and we're waiting longer than 5 minutes, but when we exit, we're done. We have now set up this model for presentation, and it really wasn't that bad of a process. I mean, I still need to get in and troubleshoot some bakes, but for the most part, we have now at least got to an acceptable final result. And I even, after the edit, went in and dealt with some triplanar mapping stuff in order to make sure no UV seams were showing, just to ensure that everything is just right. But with that, we can truly wrap up this video, and I thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.